Look at that nerd, huh?
I thought I was looking at my mother's old douchebag, but that's in Ohio.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Sarcasm Aside podcast. My name's Tommy, aka Tommy's Too High.
And I'm Chris, aka the Milk Dad.
Milky, give me some cookies. How you
Put
doing,
your
buddy?
milk in my Cocoa Puffs. Some milky Cocoa Puffs. I'm good, man. How have you been?
Is that a real Cocoa Puffs song, or do you just like Cocoa Puffs and that's the song that you sing when you're eating the Cocoa Puffs?
That's Black Eyed Peas, isn't it? Fergie.
Oh, what? Oh,
Put
sorry,
your
I missed.
milk
I didn't
in
get
my-
that.
It's all right, man. I didn't sing
get
just
that
like
album.
Fergie, so it's all good, man. We'll forgive you on that one.
No, that's okay, man.
Hey, so I was watching Captain America Civil War recently, and
Okay.
I never knew this, but in like the first guy that they fight in the beginning before the whole thing pops off is
Uh-oh.
Crossbones. I didn't know
course.
Crossbones was even in that movie the first time I saw it until I recently watched it again.
That's one of my favorite parts about the MCU. They're strategic throwaway villains.
Yeah, man.
They're like, look, realistically, we can't give this guy his own villain movie.
Right.
So, all right, let's just throw him away real quick in a 10-minute scene. And it's pretty cool because they drop it real casually, real quick. If you're not
Right.
like even aware of him as a character, you're not going to pick up on him.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
cool
yeah.
because Crossbones is like, I think in not today. He's like way back in the day. I think he was in World War II. He was fighting for, he was like an assassin for the Nazis or something like
Yeah.
that. Could be mistaken, but yeah, speaking of which, I've been actually reading a part of the Civil War series, a comic. It's not next to me right now, otherwise I'd show it off.
Dope.
But it's kind of like the compiling of the Illuminati, they're called, which is pretty funny. But I don't know if you know about them, but it consists of Professor X, Doctor Strange, Namor, and a few other big name characters that are like more mental based. Iron Man's in there, and it's kind of like a strategy where like they meet up together and they talk about ways. Well, anyways, it leads up to the Civil War series, and it kind of gives you some background on it. It's pretty interesting. Speaking of which,
Dope, man.
Speaking of which, if you guys want a free comic, we're doing a free comic giveaway on the podcast. All you have to do is like, subscribe, or share a combination of the and/or, and you guys will be automatically entered to win some pretty sweet fucking free comic books. I'll send them to you. We'll be giving those away within the next, I think, couple weeks. We already have a few people up for the running, so make sure to do that and get your name in the mix if you guys want some free comic books.
Yeah, man, especially if you want a good leeway into starting to read comic books, man. I'm sure those will be a free way to get into it and check it out.
Especially the X-Men one, because it basically gives you a new vamped version of what the X-Men are going to kind of look like in the MCU. So it's definitely from the whole reason I got it is because I heard the word on the word was that this is the comic book that Kevin Feige is going to end up taking in the direction of X-Men. So
Oh, cool.
if you are
That's pretty dope. I didn't know
interested in
that.
yeah, so if you are interested in that, it kind of gives you a cool Magneto backstory. It dips and dabs in a few different ways. So that's probably the best comic book. It's the best one. So the other ones are one issues and throwaways. But yeah, but we did get a lot of people that responded to the Xbox Series X podcast that we did last week. So, good luck.
Sweet. If you didn't check it out, man, go check it out. It's a good talk that we got going on there.
And it definitely ties into this week's podcast about the PlayStation 5, which I've been looking forward to. I didn't have to do
me
as
too,
much.
man.
I didn't have to do as much research as I had to for the Xbox, just because I'm not as much of a fan of the company per se. I hate the phrase per se, but I'm not. I'm so much of a fan of Sony per se that I knew already walking in just the history of the company, the history of the gaming development, so I was already stoked. And we kind of talked about that in another podcast we did. So this all kind of encapsulates it. I mean, and I think we're gonna do a good comparison.
You could probably say I'm
end.
a Sony fanboy per se. You know what I mean? Per se
Per
for me.
se.
You could definitely
Per
per se
se.
that I'm a Sony fanboy per se.
So the whole reason that we put it off was because PlayStation just did the June 11th kind of promo release, and that's why we put on waiting to do the play, because we talked about doing the PS5 podcast, but we're like, all right, well they just announced they're gonna do some promo, so let's wait off. So we waited.
Yeah.
June 11th happened, and overall, let's do a quick review of that. What was your initial response?
Well, I liked that they actually were showing some usage of the PS5 and stuff, but a lot of that stuff is showing up like trailers almost. It's not really gameplay.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see more gameplay with it, right? That's always going to be the big thing, is you want to see the gameplay. So that'd be the first thing that I noted. That's my big note, is the takeaway from that is there's not as much gameplay. The Spider-Man Miles Morales game looks dope. I don't want to talk too much about the console until we get into it. We'll get into it. But the games that they showed, all of them look really cool. The New Horizon game looks dope. But the Spider-Man Miles Morales, which I saw that it could have been just an expansion, but then other times they're saying it's going to be a full game. Either way, fucking stoked, man. I think bringing in Miles Morales is going to be really cool. And you can tie it into the movies that they're doing with the Spider-Verse and all that shit. So I think it's pretty cool, that game I'm looking forward to. And the new Hitman, right? They're doing another Hitman on there, which would be cool. So.
Yeah, the big there's a bunch of games that they announced that were going to be released in 2020 for the holiday season that will be both compatible on PS5 and PlayStation 4. There's a bunch of titles, so much so that I really didn't want to list them all out. But the big ones, you already mentioned it, the Spider-Man Miles Morales game, Horizon Forbidden West, Wreck-It and Clank, which I'm not really... I know Wreck-It is a big character, but I'm not a big fan. Gran Turismo 7
Ratchet and
also...
Clank? Ratchet and Clank.
What did I say? Wreck-It?
Wreck-It, like Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, I'm not...
I'm gonna wreck it!
I know. I know that Marvel had a Ratchet Easter egg during the movie. Iron Man calls Rocket Ratchet, and that's kind of a little nod to it.
Oh, that's funny.
That's as far as my knowledge goes of him. And yeah, that's pretty much it in the Sockboy game, Big Adventure, which, I mean, yay. However, they had a bunch of games on there that they listed out, which I was surprised they didn't mention. I think those are the games, that big core 6 are going to be the ones that they're giving on release. So those are the ones that they're leaning on for like spectacular, hey, buy these included. And maybe some of the consoles are going to go ahead and come with those games initially. But I agree. I was pretty excited after the reveal. I thought it was a little weird that it was like a 2-hour long stream. I thought that was a little unnecessary, but they did preview a lot of games. Like you said, it was mostly trailers. They had a little bit of gameplay for each game. They did show some of the first-person stuff. The Hong Kong game was pretty cool. However, they showed the startup screen. Did you see that? I thought that was pretty...
I saw a quick little... So I didn't see that part of it, but I did see a quick little snippet on... I think it was Twitter. I saw somebody post something, and it's like a clip of like all the startups. And that was pretty fucking cool to see. But the new like opening looks pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like the way that it looks. We'll get more into that towards the end when we talk about the software the new software updates and compatibility and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was deeply impressed on the presentation. And the big boom, of course, was this was the big reveal on what it looks like on the whole exterior side of things, the whole possibility side of things, like what it. So there's already a bunch of speculation on some colors, some designs, some game themes that could go along with it. PlayStation 4 was pretty successful with the Spider-Man release, so I'm assuming that with the Miles Morales, they'll go ahead and do that as well, give you that cool little Spider-Man paint release, which I think would be tight. What did you think about the... It's pretty long. The picture makes it look a little smaller than it is. It's actually about 15 inches in whatever that is, because you can hold it vertically and horizontally, so I don't know what you want to call that, but the surface area of it is about 15 inches total. It's white exterior, kind of thin blades, wingish looking, and then a black interior with blue LED lights around it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think if they're going for the future look, like that futuristic vibe to it, they probably nailed it, right? But I don't know, man. Like, I can't imagine putting that... Like, my living room is very, like, rustic kind of flavor to it. So I can't imagine that, like, putting a futuristic PlayStation in my living room is going to look that great. So in my office, like my man cave, I guess you want to call it, it's going to look really cool. It'll match my PC really well. But, like... in my living room, like in my actual space that I go into, it's going to look a little weird. I had to see it in person. I think that's kind of where my verdict is right now. I think it's a little on the flashy side. I think they could have toned it down a little bit more, and it would have still looked really, really cool with the white and the black. I don't think the blades at the top were necessary or anything like that. Once you lay it horizontal, it looks like shit. I think you have to lay it vertical. I think it has to be up and down, because when it was on its side and I saw it in the preview on the side, I didn't really care for it looking that way. So when it sat horizontal, I didn't think it looked too good. It looks like out of sorts, right?
Yeah, I like it vertical, personally.
I think it looks
like
good
the way
vertical.
It sets up. According to Jim Ryan, a representative from Sony, they basically wanted to take a quantum leap over the current generation and alongside the new games, the new audio, be transformative with the look of it as well, and the sound and the feel. So the exterior is not going to be just like a plastic feeling, from what I understand. It's going to have a mattness to it. It's gonna be a little stain resistant. So it's not going to have the issues that a lot of people think it's going to have. However, the look of it, I mean, just by look, it looks like it's going to be a component where you could interchange it to where, they're going to release new variances on it, but it looks like they could just sell a new covering for those wings and then keep the black interior and just continually redesign the exterior, because they've already mentioned that they're going to release parts that are going to be available for you to open up and then plug in directly into the system in order to increase performance. So they've already said that that's going to be a thing, which I figured you'd be pretty excited about that. Although it's going to be expensive and it's basically one or two brands that you're going to be able to utilize, they are going to be interchangeable parts and pieces. But I kind of like the look. They said that it was basically put together in order to do all the things that are being asked of the unit to do. And we'll get further into the architecture of the interior, a little later on in the podcast. But I like it. I think it looks super fucking badass. Like it looks like a space computer from the future for sure, man. Just looks. I like the lights on the top. I'm gonna make it vertical, but that's because I intend on getting the digital version of it, which is pretty exciting. That we'll get further into that more, whether or not it's going to be necessary to include the Blu-ray player in these. And I think it's pretty cool that they already, within the release, they let you know, hey, we're going to have two different versions of this, and this is the difference. And I think there's going to be a price variation in it as well. Yeah,
I hear you, man. I'm right there with you.
What about the controller? What did you think about that before we start getting too specific with the interior of the system?
Yeah, the DualSense. So they're changing the name from DualShock 5 to DualSense. I think it's cool, man. I like it. I like the wider look. It looks more like, I don't know, futuristic still. Just kind of going that vibe where it's nice and it's kind of elongated a little bit more than the DualShock 4. I like that they're keeping the touchpad. I actually think the touchpad was a really cool design in the first place. Regardless of if games take advantage of it or not, I still think it's a nice utilization of space. So like you have that whole center part and it's like, hey, you know what? Why not just throw the touchpad in there? So I actually like that Sony's keeping the touchpad because it really wasn't utilized that much in the PS4. But I still think it's nice for what it was utilized for, which most games use it for, like the map, right? Like you just tap it and you can pull up the map automatically. So I like the touchpad for that. I think it's not in a place where it's inconvenient, like to maneuver around. It's just in the middle of two buttons that you already don't even use that much. So like, why not keep it? I like it. I'm glad that they kept it, and I hope they utilize it more than they did in the DualShock 4, right?
Yeah. What do you think about the adaptive triggers with the haptic feedback?
I don't know. I'll have to see what they use it with, right? So I saw the big appeal was like, if you were shooting a bow, you would feel the resistance in the bow as you pull tauter.
How many games have that feature?
Right, exactly. That's kind of what I'm getting at is like, that's cool, but is it really going to be utilized? I could see where it's like, hey, you upgraded the trigger in a gun, then it feels a little bit less touchy, or it's more touchy, or you have more pull or less pull. I mean, that's about all that I can think of, but my pea brain isn't going to think of all these other, different ideas to put into it. The one thing I didn't like about the controller is PlayStation And all the DualShock controllers have always been colorized. The buttons, the triangle, the square, the circle, and the cross have all been colorized. And now these are like a sleek color. Like they run with each other, which is nice. But like when I see a PlayStation controller, I like that it has the blue, the pink, the orange, and the red. I think those are the colors. And I always like seeing that, like just seeing that on the side. So I think they could have been still put into this and still look sleek and good and still have that same namesake of, a DualSense or a DualShock or whatever.
Yeah, luckily with things like the controller and the visual representations of things, that's something that they could definitely reformat in the future and make cooler, and there's always going to be variants on the way the controller looks. That being said, I totally agree with you. I'm a fanboy when it comes to nodding to the original consoles or nodding to the origin of really anything. It's a part of my nerddom.
Yeah.
What do you feel about the addition of the microphone to the controller? So it depends. I know it depends on the quality of the microphone, and I want to distinguish that before you give me your answer. But do you think it's going to be more convenient? Do you think it's going to be something that people use more than headphones? Or do you think people who use headphones are going to be like, you know what, dude, headphones are the way to go. You can hear things better. You're going to be using headphones anyways. Why the hell would you need a microphone?
Yeah, so the only thing that I've seen that they included it in there for was like use with like, hey, PlayStation, put on, Spider-Man. And your PlayStation currently does that. So it's really not changing the tech other than the microphones in the controller, which is cool, I guess. I mean, for the guys that don't want to wear a headset and would rather listen to their speakers and talk to their friends through their controller, I guess it works out. Quality is probably going to be shit. I don't think it's going to be like a fantastic quality. If the controller's $60 again, which it might not be, they might be like $80 now. Like you can buy a really good high-end headset for the same price, like $60 to $80 price range. You can get a good headset for that price, and then you would be fine with that. So I think it's a wash, neither here nor there. Like, hey, cool, it's cool that you added it. So I think, hey, PlayStation is going to happen more often, like when you're talking to it, but I don't think it's going to make much of a difference in the future.
They basically renamed the share button Create, which is showing that they're actually moving towards more of a Twitch-friendly environment. I don't want to break down the accessories too much because I don't find them to be that important. It's just basically a charging station. They also have I think it's a TV remote basically is what they have, and some other knickknacks accessories. Yeah. What do you think about them basically making cameras? They only Sony PlayStation cameras are going to be accessible on this system, which is the same as it was last system. What do you think about that? Nothing's changed.
Yeah, I never used a camera on PlayStation 4.
So they're making twitching and sharing, equally as difficult as it was on PlayStation 4 at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends. Like, so when I stream, I'm using OBS software. It's a third-party software, and I set up all my scene transitions and all of my different catalogs. Like, I have it all structured already. So I don't know. Like, people kind of, if they're trying to go the streaming outlook, what I could see is they're moving towards their own platform. Sorry, I hit my mic. What they're moving towards their own platform, right, to stream off of. So it's like, hey, you go to Sony's website and they stream off of it. If they're trying to do that, then that's cool. But Twitch, Mixer, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, they all demand their own, like the audience demands their own scenery, if that makes sense. So like a decent looking overlay, something not over the top, they want some, you have to kind of differentiate yourself, especially when you're starting out. If you're just going to grab a camera, throw it in front of you and play video games, that's cool too. But I don't think it's going to put you over the top. I think you would be better off just taking the capture card and capturing it to a PC and setting up your own OBS software and all that stuff for streaming. So if that's what they're trying to go for, is like, hey, you have your Sony cool computer or cool camera and you stream off of that. That's good for most average Joes. Like if somebody just wants to put up like gameplay, that's cool too. But I don't think it's going to be anything over the top. I never cared to get a camera for my PS4. and I've always wanted to stream.
Cool. That pretty much covers the accessory part, so we don't have to focus on that too much.
Doubt.
Moving on to a topic that I think most people are not only interested in, but are adamantly demanding these consoles be backwards compatible.
Yeah.
Sony stated outward that there's thousands, an overwhelming majority was the phrase, of PlayStation 4 games with many running at a boosted process speed. So there is going to be benefit from higher resolution moderately. I don't think it's going to be an overwhelming amount to where it's like, wow, this is a completely different game. It's just going to be running at a higher speed res rate, which is cool. It's just not going to actually... It's going to be running through 4K, but it's not actually going to be 4K. Now, that sounds bizarre, but that's pretty much what it's going to end up be putting out, which is cool. That's pretty much what Xbox is guaranteeing on their part. So outside of the giant catalog that Xbox has, maybe there are more games that are going to be available backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
Certainly PlayStation doesn't have the accessories that can be backwards compatible. Like, I'm not going to be able to hook up my PS4 controller to a PS5, so that's not going to be there. But I think they did get it right in the backwards compatibility market.
Yeah, so one of the things that I saw was on initial launch, the top 100 PS4 games will be available to play. And I can only assume that also interprets to you taking your account over to PS5, all your games should be there to be able to play. So I don't know what that means for the people that have the physical copies of them, if they're going to be able to just download it or not. You might have to use your physical copy still because you originally purchased that physical copy. I think it's cool, man. Like, a lot of these later games brought in are going to be throttled back to work on those systems and not have reduced frame rates. So you're going to see, like, the newer games that came out, probably like the Spider-Mans, the Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, the Warzones. I'm trying to think of some newer games that just came out recently. Any of the games that kind of came out in the past year or so, those games are going to be the ones that are going to look a lot better. You're going to see kind of a difference because a lot of these developers are going to throttle back, especially the ones that got rilled on PC as well, like Steam and all those other stuff. So if you saw them on PC...
Cross-platform games, for sure.
So if they're if they were released on different platforms, then more than likely those ones that came out on PS4 are going to look a little bit better on PS5. So you're not going to take like GTA 5. It's going to look better, but it's not going to look like extremely better, right? Those kind of games. So
right.
Hey, good news, bad news. We get GTA 5 again with PS5. Ooh.
Right, and Red Dead Redemption will probably look better, but it's not going to be something compelling to the point where you're going to want to completely buy a brand new version of that game on PS5 solely. So they said over 1,000 games, like I said, are available. But yeah, that. It has a lot to do with, and we'll get into this now because we know about the resolution, it being 4K and 8K upscaling, 4K native, of course. But a lot of the reason why they're able to even play PlayStation 4 games on the new PS5 is because of the CPU. It's a pretty similar architecture to the CPU available in the PlayStation 4 Pro.
I didn't know that. I didn't look up the PlayStation 4 Pro.
The architecture. I'm not saying it's the same CPU,
okay.
But because the architecture is very similar, that's why you're able to play cross-platform to PS4 really easily.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, that's cool, man. I mean, I know that the CPU that the PS5's getting is another Ryzen 3 chip, just like Xbox, at 3.5 gigahertz, Zen 2 architecture. So it's a lot of the same Gen 3 Ryzens. Yeah, 8 cores. The same Gen 3 Ryzen that you can kind of get on the market, as well as going to be in the Xbox. The difference, mainly between the two of them, the 3.5 and the 3.8, really, it's not going to be that big of a difference, in my opinion. It's so small that it's not going to be a big deal. So the architecture will be the big thing with that, which Zen 2's already been out, and it's pretty good. Everybody likes the AMD chips. So.
Yeah, and we'll get into the importance of it here in a second. What about the GPU?
Yeah, the graphics card, same thing, right? So it's what, 10.2 or something? 10.28 teraflops? Yeah. At 36 CUs at 2.23 gigahertz. So
all things considered is only, I mean, I guess 1.72 teraflops less than what the Xbox Series
of computing power, right? It's not even
right.
like it's the information taken in. So that could make an effect as well. But the main thing is
that's
the
what people
architecture.
are jerking each other off about over there at Microsoft. They're like,
it's
"Oh
not
my
that big of a deal.
god!" It's like what?
No, it's minimal, right? I mean, if you really are going to base your decision off of 6 or 1.7 teraflops, then hey man, good for you, buddy. You may have made the right decision. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Let me talk architecture real quick, because we talked architecture a lot last podcast, and I don't think I explained it as well as I could have. So let's think of architecture as like a highway, right? So you have your speeds, which is already set. So that's like your frequencies that your graphics cards is kind of sending out, right?
A highway of information.
Right. So let's say you have 4 lanes. Well, you're getting all this information in to redistribute it. You have to go from A to B, right? So once you hit B is when that graphics comes out of the graphics card, the process of it, right? So the architecture is built to make those lanes not get crowded. So they're making separate lanes. Does that kind of make sense in that kind of light?
Absolutely.
So now you're taking from A to B, and you've run multiple different roads, but they're all reaching B at the same time, but we're not crowding the same frequency. So they have to build these architectures. The RDNA2s are going to be built around specifics of what these consoles are going to need. So they're building these roadways to go a certain path, I guess you could say.
Very specifically for these units, the special boost system frequency.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all going to depend on how they're going to utilize these two different graphics cards, these two different, I should say, graphics cards. How they're going to utilize that architecture to get from point A to point B. So we really need to wait just a little bit longer when we see RDNA 2 really get that full-fledged send out of what we're looking at for architecture and structure and how they're going to be utilizing all this stuff.
And to tag on to what you're saying, because of the smart shift architecture, basically they're able to adjust the frequencies of the CPU and the GPU.
Yeah.
And if one's running lower than the other, if the CPU's running lower, for example, an activity and they need to basically boost up that frequency, well, they're able to adjust the frequency, whether it be lower or higher, to the GPU, which can allow it to kind of even out and run at a higher performance without otherwise affecting the power or it needing to be additionally cooled, which is what most consoles run into right now. That's why that annoying fan goes on every time, because the thing's about to explode. It's like everything's going crazy. That's that noise.
It's Tom
that's
Cruise and Top
right
Gun, man, trying to fly by the tower.
Exactly. So the way that they've designed it is really important, and the way that you broke it down, I think, is perfect. And I'm going to try to have some visual representation. I found some cool pictures, so if you're listening to this, go to our YouTube. You can subscribe there too to get the updates, and you'll be able to see more of a visual representation of what Chris is talking about. Because it is pretty cool to understand. It's definitely the next step and where we're headed as far as computing power and understanding the importance. What is it? Is it bandwidth? Is it the communication that's important, or is it the power that's important?
Sure.
And I think Sony is really stepping a line here. What about the RAM here?
It's pretty normal. I mean,
it's the same as Xbox. They're running at and just to understand, what's the difference between RAM and storage?
Yeah, RAM is just it's a random access memory. It's the stuff that's picking up and kicking it out right away. It's not your storage is your stored information that it's feeding off of. It's the RAM processes it and kicks it right back out. It's
right.
kind of the best way that I can word it.
No, you nailed it. You nailed it. That's literally what my notes said, and I wanted to ask you that. So it's short-term data, but it's the reason that it's important. They are 16 gigabytes, so like a really nice computer will run at about 11 gigabytes. So 16 gigabytes of RAM is pretty solid for a gaming console. It's definitely double, if not more than that, than what all PlayStation Pros are running at right now. So it is impressive. And that's why you're able to see, outside of the architecture, you're able to see this fast, quick jumping of game to game, and they have the data right there in front of you. This is a large part to do with that. RAM doesn't,
RAM isn't that big of a deal when it comes to gaming. The standard right now is actually, I think it's 8 gigs is the standard for gaming. 16 gigs just kind of puts them into that next portfolio of like, hey, you know what? This is the next part, so we're already ahead of the game. It's not 16 gigs is 16 gigs. It's the same as Xbox. They're both doing it right.
And they're both putting out 448, 447 variants of, whatever, up and down depending on performance. But they're both the consoles are performing about the same rates in this department as well. This is where the dividing line happens, right here, outside of the architecture. This is where we step into the undisputable facts of what console is better. This is the SSD, the storage part, the way they designed it, the in and out, aka the transfer speed, long-term storage. Let's go, Chris. Tell us all about it, man.
Yeah, so I know it's a little bit smaller. So if you just look at just the size, Xbox is 1 terabyte, PlayStation's advertising 825 gigabytes. Yeah, 825 gigabytes. But the difference is the speeds. So like PlayStation's at 5.5 gigabytes per second of processing, of taking that information out and spitting out that information quicker, while Xbox is at 2.4 gigs or 2.3 gigs per second. It's right around there. I had to look at my old notes to really remember the exact numbers. That's awesome. Like, so PlayStation has said, hey, listen, we're gonna up the ante on solid states. So we're both going to have a solid state, but however, ours is going to be faster, which is good. So that means downloading quicker, loading games faster, as well as being able to hit that information quicker to send out to the game. And you should have almost a smoother feeling game on the PlayStation. Do I think it's going to be major? No. I think it's going to be pretty benign, but the biggest thing I think is the expansion of your hard drives. So like, yeah, exactly. Load times are going to be so much better. One of the guys in my chat were saying that. But
well, this is what I have for Xbox. They have 1 terabyte SSD card, and it's putting out 4.8 gigabytes per second, whereas the PlayStation's putting out 8 to 9 gigabytes of compressed information per second.
Okay.
So that, I mean, that's literally double of what Xbox is able to put out. And even of the raw data, that 5.5 gigabytes over the 2.5, 2.6, whatever variance it might be, I think that, I mean, it being double those speeds, this is what's going to separate it. I think PlayStation is going to murder them in the load speeds, the access information speeds. It's going to be so much fucking faster, literally double as fast. Also, it has the PC LE 4.0.
Yeah, so... Right. What you just said at the end is the differentiating factors of PS4 and Xbox this gen. If you want to find a line to draw in the sand, I think the only place you're really going to find it between these two consoles is going to be the expandable storage. The fact that PS4 has already said that, hey, you're going to be able to put a 4th gen NVMe SSD into, which is the newest of SSDs. If you want like the highest end SSD, you get a 4th gen NVMe SSD. They're already saying like, hey, if you want to expand your storage more, which you're probably going to have to, 800 terabytes is 800 terabytes. I'm sorry, 800 gigabytes is 800 gigabytes. 800 terabytes is a lot. But 800 gigabytes is not enough. If you want to expand your storage, you have to buy the NVMe SSD 4th gen if you want to use the SSD again. And I think this is what's going to differentiate game developers with exclusives, right? Because if they're doing both systems, they're going to cater off of the lower end system and just kick it out on the other side. You might get a little bit better stuff here and there, but it's really going to be down to processing, which we've already discussed. It's going to be a wash. But the exclusives are going to be able to utilize. They're demanding like, hey, if you're putting that 4th gen NVMe in that console, it's got to be the same speed as what we already have in our SSD. So now they've already set a standard in there that says, hey, we're already using the fastest that we can. And in 4th gen NVMe, which means that you're going to have to buy a more expensive SSD, but it's going to give you that better quality of SSD. The expansion for Xbox is just through a USB cable, which it is what it is. Like, you're not going to get the same data transfer out of a USB through an SSD processed through a system through a USB connection than you would out of NVMe that actually goes right into the motherboard. I hope. I don't know how they're doing this expansion without saying like, hey, you need to bring it in, because Johnny 14-year-old wants to expand his hard drive, and he messes it up. So
yes, I agree with you that is a gigantic leap, and that is definitely going to be a separator. However, I think the line in the sand is drawn with the 12 channels and the CFC, the custom flash controller. I think that is the line in the sand.
Sure.
The way that they designed it, and I'm showing an image of it right now, the way that they designed it is so beautiful. And with the enhancement of the special boost systems, the Smart Shift, the AMDs, because they've added those two chips across the bandwidth, they're able to access memory way faster. And I think, according to these two quotes, okay, I got one from William Daly from NVIDIA, the chief scientist over there. Are you familiar with him?
No, I don't follow the chief scientists on Twitter anymore. I got them all off of there.
Well, are you familiar with NVIDIA?
Yes, I'm familiar with NVIDIA. I have an NVIDIA
They develop
graphics card.
right?
Yeah,
so
that's
in
my
your
graphics
system.
card. Yep.
You like that company, okay?
I
this
love
is
them.
this is what they say. Accessing even a small memory array costs way more than doing an operation. And a lot of what we think memory cost is today is really a communication cost. So
Interesting.
Their argument is not to have more power, not to have more data, but to have better access, or not to have more memory space, storage space, but to have access to the storage space that we currently have at a better, faster rate.
Okay.
I have another quote for you. What graphics... Oh, boy, is this the quote? Okay, yeah. This is a long one. I don't know if I want to do this whole one because I can't read.
Well, let's
I
skip
can't
it
read
then.
so good. But Jim Keller, he basically says the biggest issue. I'm going to sum it up here. The biggest issue is the design with the CPU and the GPU. He thinks that this is the designer of Zen architecture. So this is the guy that is not only dealing with it but is putting it together himself. And his biggest hindrance for his company is communication with the GPU, CPU, and the storage space. And Sony has done both of these things on an accelerated rate, and it's going to be the two deciding factors that separate this console from not only all the other gaming consoles, but once again, I think they're going to show this design is going to be something that computers in the future take forward, and it's going to... This is the fucking beginning stages of AI to me, dude. This thing, it thinks by itself. The access of the speed to which it can access information is... It blows my mind. The way that they were tearing it all down. I don't think video games are going to be the thing that fully stretches this system out. I think the way that they set this system up, it's going to be able to do shit that video games are not going to be able to test. Like, yeah, you might be able to get 8 to 9 gigabytes per second, but like that, your video games are probably not going to be doing that. So... There's just, I think that they've developed a system, like they didn't even know what they did. Like back in the day, PlayStation 3, the Air Force, I don't know if you know this, but our U.S. Air Force had stacks of PlayStation for computing power. They were all set up and interlinked together. Sony set this up. And it ran a portion of the U.S. Air Force. Like, that's how dope these systems are. They're not just gaming systems. They're computing power. It's quite impressive, and I think they just stumbled onto something that's going to blow people's mind. Who's talking shit about me? Nick? Is it Nick?
No one. No. One of the guys in the chat said, meanwhile, the Switch is like, hey, guys, I'm still high-tech too, right? Which is hilarious.
Yeah, right. Suck it, bro. Why don't you go? Poor bastards.
So what you're saying is that the next step is Jarvis, and then we get Ultron, and then we get the Vision.
They really want an interactive system that thinks with you. It wants it to be. They want it to feel like an extension of you almost. It's
so
pretty
we're gonna
crazy.
get a chip in our brain, and we're all gonna become half AI, sentient beings. Is that what I'm looking for? Sentient beings.
Yes, it is.
Perfect.
So no fans in this one. No, there's just vents. There's not going to be any noise on this system whatsoever. The way that they designed it, it's just going to have vents that. It's going to alleviate it.
Sweet. I can't wait to see it. I'll have to see it. Now, that also means, are you going to need more, open area around the system? Because a lot of people put these systems into a cubby inside of their entertainment unit, or as Nick eloquently put it earlier, they put it on top of their milk crate in their bedroom with holes in their wall. So is it going to need more airspace around it to kind of, give you that better airflow?
From what I understand, no. That's the purpose of the design. So
yeah, well, the Xbox 360 also wasn't supposed to have Red Ring of Death, but here we are.
Yeah, I know, but Twitter didn't exist back then, and if it did, I mean, Xbox wouldn't even be a company anymore.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Sony is one of their big things that they haven't really talked too much about, which I think is weird. The PS5, although the computing power is double, triple, it's so much better of a machine. It is a reduction in energy consumption. So I don't know by how much, but it does consume less energy than the PS4 does. I thought that was a pretty interesting little tidbit I wanted to throw in there as well.
Sweet.
Yeah. What about the audio? We've heard about this 3D audio technology. Do you know anything about it?
3D audio technology. Yeah, the Tempest 3D audio
Tempest
tech,
engine.
Right?
Yeah.
So they're claiming that PS5 is the evolution of sound. So what they're saying is that you'll be able to hear, instead of just hearing, the example they gave was, instead of hearing rain, you would hear raindrops all around you, like hearing the actual drops hit the ground instead of just hearing rain fall. That's cool. I mean, I had to hear it. I really want to hear it, right?
Great for bullets. Great for guys sneaking up on you. I'm looking forward to it. Instead of the PS4, they said they had 50 producing audio output compared to hundreds of the PS5 hundreds of sound sources computing outputs. I don't know what the hell it's called, but it's supposed to be fucking sick, dog.
Yeah, we gotta see it, right? That's the big thing, is a test. Like, okay, so again, we go back to last podcast where we talked about it doesn't matter if you don't have something receiving it good, right? So like, if you don't have the 4K TV, you're not going to get 4K resolution. If you don't have the good headphones, are you going to still get the good 3D like, how do you get 3D Tempest sound off of a soundbar that's a 2.0 surround sound? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, also one of the big changes in the controller output is instead of the typical 16th inch, I think it's called, your typical jack input of headphones. It's now going to be a USB-C connectivity, and then your Bluetooth, obviously, you're going to be able to connect. So most headphones are not going to be compatible with the controllers. So you're going to have to get the gaming headphones for this. You're not going to be able to go get, the ones that actually have the USB-C inputs.
That sucks, man. That sucks. I feel bad for the guys that, like, could you imagine us saying to dad, like, hey, Pops, as he's raising us, 3 sons, hey, Pops, we want this game. Oh, hey, by the way, we really want these headphones, and then the games are going to cost $60 on top of it. It's like, fuck, man. There's going to be one more thing. Well, hey, you already have these headsets that are Turtle Beach aftermarket, and then you can't use those. Now you got to get something else to use the 3D Tempest audio.
You want me to feel bad about something that's a choice, first off. Second off, you want me to feel bad about something that doesn't have options, and it's like, bro, there's so many options for kids to play video games. I don't think children should get the latest high-end console. That's bullshit. Especially when Sony goes out of its way to still put out games on older consoles, and Xbox goes out of its way to put out games on older consoles as well. New games, brand new games for years when they don't have to be doing that shit. They definitely play down to people who don't have the money to buy a system right away. They definitely allow people the amount of time to, like, okay, I'm going to let it sit for a little bit. They're going to drop a new one. They get those people too. They let you, almost every year outside of this one, I've owned a PlayStation like a couple years past the new generation. So I'm not a person, or a year or two or whatever. I'm not a person. I've gone through that. I'm now in a place financially where I don't have to wait. That's different, when back then I'm in college, busting ass. So, like, it's a totally different environment. So for children, high schoolers, dude, they shouldn't be thinking about, high schoolers, you should have a job and you should be buying your own PlayStation. You should be asking your dad for shit. But if you're a fucking middle schooler, dude, you should not be getting a PlayStation 5 unless your dad is a gamer, and guess what, you are. So there's going to be a PS5 at some point in your crib. Your daughter's going to reap the benefits of that thing because you're interested in it. But if your kids are interested in that kind of hobby to that kind of level...
Well, so I disagree with you into a shed of light on this, is because gaming is not what it used to be. Damn, we're going off topic, but I love this. This is a good conversation. So I'm going to say this because...
Well, it's going to lead to the price point, because we're going to talk about the price here in a second.
Kids
so
are making multi-million-dollar contracts. Guys that are under 18, between 12 to 16-year-olds are making millions of dollars or thousands of dollars even, which is still a substantial amount of money at that age, a month or a year or whatever. They're making money off of this stuff now. So... I don't know. I could see where it's like, damn, I could see both ends of it, right? So now I'm kind of getting into it like, hey, if you're making money, then you can afford it. But at the same time, it's like, it still fucking sucks if you're not making that money. Like, you want the latest, like everybody wants the latest and greatest, you know what I mean? I know what you mean, that they're going to still make that stuff for PS4, but it still kind of sucks, like, to put these price points and to put like, hey, it has to be USB. I understand it. I definitely get the idea behind it, because it's going to fall behind if it doesn't. But, like, fuck, dude, I feel bad for Joe Blow that really wants a PS5 for Christmas, and Dad can't get it for him. But let's say Dad does manage to get it for him. Now he's got to get all this extra shit on top of it. It fucking sucks, man. Like, that's the stuff that sucks.
He doesn't... Okay, well, let's get into the price point before we start talking about it, because let's get logistics on our side here.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit about price last week. You backed me in a corner, and you're like, do you think $500 is worth it? Well, since then, there's been rumors that it could go up to $700. There's been rumors of them going, no. It's going to be more like $499. That's what it's going to be. And then we're going to have some accessories available for you to purchase. So no. That's not what we're going to do. And we're going to give away a game for free on the initial console release. So no. Back that down. Okay, so let's talk about it. $500. It costs them $450 to make, according to Bloomberg, which it's an estimated cost according to the companies, like all their costs, all the stuff that they've had to go through legally, all the stuff put together. Each console is about $450 for them to make. They're making $50 per console if they sell it for $500. Is that unreasonable in today's market? I don't think so. I think $50 is a perfect amount for Sony to be making off of these consoles. Now, if it was like $200 more, that's when I would start questioning things. But $50 is the right amount. Now, I agree with you. It sucks that you're not going to get the full quality and extent of this console unless you have the $100 headset, unless you have the $500, $800 to $1,000 TV, depending on the size, 4K to 8K. I mean, 8K TV is like $1,500 right now if you want to get that. So, and the thought process, it's like, why are you getting a 4K? Why do you get 8K? Yes, but they're accessories to the computing unit, and it's a choice. The console is $500 for a free game, a dope-ass console, and a controller, all the cords necessary to plug it in. To me, all things said and done, that is a fair price to be asking for your customers, from your customers.
What was the price again? What did you say?
$500. They're making $50 off of that product because it's $450 for them to make. So I think $500 is a totally reasonable amount of money to ask for the console, a free game, and a controller and all the cords that you need for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. $500, I think. I don't know, man. Like, it's interesting to see. What I'm thinking, my personal opinion is, I think it's going to come out at closer to $600. And then you're going to see the no optic drive at $550. And I think that's going to kind of be... Either way, the optic drive has to come in cheaper. And I think that's the point of the optic drive. Like, with it not having one and with it not having one. I think the point is that they know we're moving further and further away from physical copies. And go fuck yourself, GameStop. And then we're moving more into the digital age to where... What's up?
You want to know what I think? Just to throw that out there real quick. Sony has the copyright laws for all Blu-ray discs. So every time a Blu-ray is made, Sony gets paid money out across the board. Anytime a Blu-ray is sold, they make money. And they're the leaders in Blu-ray players. Why in the fucking God would they get rid of that thing? It is not encouraging you to then buy any more Blu-rays. They got a bunch of Terminator 8s and Blu-rays sitting over there in Japan, and they're like, bro, we got to get fucking rid of these. We have to include a Blu-ray player into these systems. I think it was a necessity rather than like, I agree with you is what I'm saying. I think that they're definitely in the vision of like, fuck, this is going to be passe.
Or is it their way to undercut Xbox this gen by saying, hey, what is your price point? They're going to put out $500. We're putting out $500, but our non-optic drive is now $25 to $50 cheaper. That's a game. That's a game right there. That's that fucking headset that you're talking about. Like, $50 is a lot.
Especially when we're talking about the way that they're setting it up. If you have a CD, you input it in there, it downloads half the fucking game into the console anyways. So why do I have the CD unless I just want to look at it on my bookshelf for fucking 20 years? Well, that's really the motivation.
The only thing that I can think of is the collector's editions. The people that buy the $150 collector's editions, and those come with physical copies. So it fucking sucks if you go, oh, well, I'm going to buy the $60 on top of it. You don't. You use the hard disk. That I'm interested to see what game developers are going to do when we move forward to no longer having an optic drive, what they're going to do with those collector's editions and the shit where they add the little knickknacks in there and stuff like that. Because I know for me, like, I wish I would have bought the collector's edition for Final Fantasy VII, but the only reason I didn't, is because I don't like having physical copies anymore. They take up space. I don't like having to take up the space and finding the space for them. So I tend to use the digital. So I bought a digital, and I saved, $50 by not having to buy the extra stuff. But if they would have been like, hey, this is a digital code included, fuck, I probably would have bought that instead, So I want to see what they do with that stuff.
I agree. I just bought my wife The Last of Us for PS5 or for PS4, which is going to be transferable to PS5.
Dope.
And I was asking her, hey, do you want all the knickknack stuff? Do you want all the because on GameStop they have t-shirt, backpack edition, and all this other shit, and it's like she really wasn't into it, but I do like that they have that stuff available. I do see that as a benefit of GameStop. I don't see gaming companies doing that, but I like the accessory packs. I think those are pretty tight, and I agree. I think if it came with a digital copy, I mean, my motivation isn't for the CD. It would be for the fun little knick-knacky stuff that comes along.
Well, companies are doing it on their own. So, like, you have the exclusive. You have the exclusive pre-orders through companies like GameStop or Best Buy and Target and stuff like that. But like, perfect example, because I really looked into it because I wanted it, was Final Fantasy VII's remake through GameStop. All they gave you extra was a card that was like a Shinra employee card. That's fucking lame, dude. Like, how fucking lame is that? Square Enix had pretty just lame. As good. And you know what? If I support Square Enix through Square Enix's website, then I'm supporting only Square Enix rather than GameStop, who's getting their margin and stuff like that, which I'm not saying don't support local game stores for sure, but I just don't see the point behind that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're getting towards the end here.
Yeah.
We have to do a quick comparison. We laid out all the specs. We laid out everything. I think my opinion is pretty clear. I think the PS5 is going to be far superior just because of the architecture of it. They seem to understand what the future of computing is going to look like, and bandwidth seems to be the answer to a lot of current problems that are holding back processing speeds. And it's not necessarily the amount of power that you have behind stuff that's doing it. We just need, like you laid it out, you said it's a highway of information. We need bigger roads with less tolls on it, and Sony seems to have figured out how to do that. They made free roads for all the information. They're a bunch of hippies down there making giant roads full of information, and they're like, bro, just fucking access it, dog. GPU, you want to know something? It's in here, dog. CPU, you want to know something? It's in here, dog. Storage available, homies. Like, that's their... I know that's a funny, stupid way to look at it, but just to wrap it all in, I think that's where the PlayStation console is going to succeed. The architecture is just fucking way superior. What do you think?
I think it's going to come down to price So none of this has been priced yet. There's been hints at it, and then the architecture of how it's gonna.
Do you think they'll be priced the same?
I don't know. The only justification Xbox had last year for the $100 extra, or for last gen, for the $100 extra was the Kinect. They're not including a Kinect this time, and PlayStation's not including anything extra. I could see where they're going to come in even, and then the no optic drive is going to be cheaper, which, my opinion with this gen, I don't think there's going to be a clear winner. I think it's going to be fanboys. If you want the Halo exclusives, you're going to get Xbox. If you want any of the PlayStation exclusive, Gran Turismo, Horizon, any of that new stuff that's coming down PlayStation, that's what you're going to be looking on. Yeah, exactly. People in my chat are saying the same thing. It's gonna come down to exclusives. Now, I will say, all the Microsoft exclusives come out on PC, so I have no incentive in my purchasing category to buy an Xbox at this point because I can play all of it on my CPU. PlayStation,
Spider-Man's a huge hit that is only going to be available on PlayStation.
Yeah, so I think that's what it's going to come down to. Whose exclusives are better and who optimizes and who uses their hardware the best way. Whose software optimizes their hardware. That's what it's going to come down to. We haven't seen that stuff yet, nor have we seen the price points. So I think it's early to say it, but if I had to say it right now, you had a gun to my head, I think PlayStation 5 wins because they have enough fanboys from last generation to carry over to this generation. And Microsoft is not bringing any heavy hitters right now for opening the door for exclusives right out the gate. That's my opinion.
And I think PlayStation has made so much of a jump from last generation that the fanboys are going to go on for the ride, even though that the devs might not be on the same speed track that the console is. In a couple years, the devs will be, and they will be pumping out games that are 4K, like really 4K, you know what I mean? Not just like dabbling in the 4K, but really 4K dabbling into the 8K, where it's like, what the fuck is going, what's real? Am I real? That thing's going to come, man, and I think Sony's going to take us there if I'm going to back anybody, because I want to encourage them to develop a future console, and they've talked about not doing it. They've talked about just making this one an interchangeable part unit. So we'll see.
Fucking love that, dude. I would be so hard if they said that they're going to have an interchangeable console, because then they're going to owe me millions of dollars for my official idea that I said a while back. It's already trademarked. I put it through. The US of A is going to back me on that shit. So
yeah, dude. Well, when you're hard, I'm hard, and that's all that matters. I feel like we've covered everything. We made our solid choice. If you guys want, we're going to be streaming today. I think right after this podcast, some Call of Duty, trying to get that W real quick.
Bingo, bingo.
Don't forget, if you want some comic books, got some brand new ones for free for you guys. I'll be sending them your way. All you got to do is like, subscribe. That includes the live chat. That includes YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes. We're on Twitch. I already said Twitch. What's the other ones? Spotify. We're on every single one of them that you guys can imagine. So we're going through some weird little changes. If you just subscribe to one of them, you will definitely be notified no matter what. And we'll try to get you guys some free comics and hook you up in the future. We also have some new stuff we'll be giving away as much as we can. So, yeah, thanks a lot for listening, guys. We'll talk to you very soon. My name's Tommy, aka Tommy's Too High. Chris, you have anything else you want to add?
No, just come in and peep the podcast, or the podcast on Twitch, man. Come check it out. We actually have a pretty active chat today. A lot of people have been throwing out a bunch of ideas and opinions on what we've been talking about. It's a really cool space to get into, and if I think it's worth adding in the middle of our conversation, I'll bring it up. But I'm sitting here typing to everybody else is typing to me, so we're having a good convo on here. Jump on the Twitch page, check it out. If you don't like it, then that's cool too, but at least you checked it out just to kind of be a part of it.
We're pretty consistent. We're Tuesday or Wednesday around 11 Pacific time, 2 p.m. East time. Yeah. So if you guys catch a rhythm with us, if you can, it's always fun to interact with you guys. We take a lot of people's opinions as well. I saw somebody, Johnny, posted some stuff. He called you an idiot about the ray tracing. He said it was pretty important. He thought that it was. He noticed it. He noticed it a lot, and he said that basically you're not running. He didn't call you an idiot. I just did that to be funny. Don't get your butt hurt. He said that you're not running it on the proper monitor, or you're not running the proper system.
Okay.
It's probably why you're not getting the benefit of having a ray tracing.
Yeah, no, he's probably right. Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, so we take all you guys' stuff, we try to include it in the podcast, so it feels more like a community, less of us just jib-jabbing at you guys the whole time. So definitely join the Twitch party. Follow Chris at the Milk Daddy, Milk Dad, on Twitch. Subscribe to our podcast, all the YouTube stuff. You guys get a notification. Talk to you guys soon, man. Chris, Milk Daddy. Peace, guys. Deuce.